Welcome to Creating Your Family Tree. I am Cynthia Harrison. Though not a certified genealogist, I have been researching my family tree since the late 1980s, early 1990s. Whether you've started a tree already or have considered creating a family tree, my goal is to provide you information, resources, and ask questions that will have you thinking of places or things you want to discover about your family. Why create a family tree? Do you know your grandparents' given names? Do your children know your grandparents' given names? And do your grandchildren know your given name? Creating or building a family tree involves putting together a picture of your family using facts, documents, stories, and pictures, starting with yourself and moving back in time as far as you can. How to create your family tree. Start with what you know. Your full name. If you're female, only your maiden name. Your birth date, the location of your birth. Were you born in a hospital? Were you born at home? Did you not make it to the hospital? Your marriage. Are you married? Your spouse's information, the date of your wedding or the date of your marriage, and the location of your marriage. Also, was there anything special about your wedding or your marriage? Your spouse, giving their full name, their birth date, their location, and anything special about them. Your children's name, full names, their birth dates, and if they happen to be married, their spouse and their spouse's birth dates. And then, of course, your parents, providing their full given names with your mother's maiden name only, not her married name, their birth dates, their marriage date, and if they have passed, their death date and locations. This is the beginning of creating your tree, of having this information ready to enter into a pedigree chart. And this is a pedigree chart. The chart is to help you see from one generation to the next, with number one being yourself, adding your birth date and location, marriage date and location. Number two is your father. Number three is your mother, with the information there. And then 4 and 5 is your father's parents, and 6 and 7 are your mother's parents. Then you have 8 and 9, which would be your father's parents, and 10 and 11 would be your father's mother's parents. 12 and 13 would be your mother's father, or your mother's father's parents, and 14, 15 would be your mother's parents. So this gives you a just general flow from one generation to the other of what information you may have. Now, sometimes the pedigree chart is kind of a short-falling because it doesn't list your siblings, and it doesn't list your spouse, and it doesn't list your children. For that information, you may want to use the family group sheet. This allows you to put if you want to start with either your husband and then yourself as the wife and then your children, or starting with your parents as the husband and wife, and then you and your siblings. Notice under husband, it has other marriage. So if your father or your grandfather, whomever you're starting with, had been previously married, then you would put that other marriage also, whether it was previously married or possibly married after the female that you descend from. And then you'd have the children, and if they're married, also their spouse's name and the date of the marriage. You do not have to have this particular form. These forms are from the National Genealogical Society, which you can download and you can fill them online and save them to your computer. You can take a piece of paper and notebook and just start adding the information that you need, such as your name, full name, date of birth, and the other information that we've discussed. So this is a pedigree chart that I started for my great-grandmother. And you'll notice that I've got her maiden name, Glass, in capital letters, and we'll discuss that shortly, with all the information that I have about her parents, and then their parents. And you'll notice that there are places that aren't complete, such as maybe it just has a year. There's not a location for Sarah Britt's death. We haven't found exactly where she died or where she was buried. And so you do have that general information of going back for generations, and you see immediately what information is missing and what information you may need to locate as you do research. And then here is the family group sheet, starting with my great-grandmother's parents, James Martin Glass, and his birth and the marriage to Amarillo Joanne Weidman. That is the great-great-grandparents that I descend from. And so she would be the wife. Now you notice under other marriage, James was married to someone else later. And so I put her name and their wedding date. Then you have the children below. And I started with the first child, their information. Thomas was married several times. And so I've got that information there of what we know. And then on the next page, we have this continued where you've got Benny Glass, which is my great-grandmother, her husband, their marriage date. And you see sources. Sources tells us where I found some of this information, whether it was from Find a Grave, from the census, from the Alabama Death Index, whatever you want to list of the information that you found or the resources that you found the information. And then put your name at the very bottom if you're the one preparing the sheet and the date that you started it. The next page shows Ruth Ann Glass, and I put in parentheses Mary Etta Lowry to indicate that she's the mother of Ruth Ann and the children below this, so that it's not difficult to know who descended from whom, as well as you're not having to sit there and go, well, when did they get married? Was this child born by the first wife or the second wife? It's all very easily laid out. Tips for filling out the charts. It's important to know some basic information that genealogists follow so that when you're doing your documentation, you're looking at what every other genealogist would be looking at. First, we do not abbreviate names. Now, all of this information about names, dates, and places that are coming up on the next few slides is coming from the National Genealogical Society. It is a great society that assists genealogists in answering questions and learning more about their next step of trying to find their ancestors. So we do not abbreviate names. We enter the full name, first, middle, and last, such as Robert Louis Stevens. Now, maybe Robert went by Bob. Well, we don't want to put Bob Stevens because that could be someone totally different. But so that we realize that Bob and Robert are the same person many times, we would want to put Robert Louis Stevens and then maybe put Bob in quotation marks or parentheses or AKA after the name so that we know that he also goes by Bob. Surnames are also the last name are entered in all caps. Now, this is a priority, a preference of how you wish to do it. Whether you want to have all surnames in caps or whether you want to just put the female maiden name in caps. I prefer putting the female maiden name in caps. It kind of gets overwhelming if you've got every last name on your charts in all caps. So I prefer doing just the female. It's up your preference, whatever you wish, and you can change it. Just so I can spot that new surname that I may be researching. You could also do the order of name whether you do last, first, and middle, or whether you do first, middle, and last. It's just your preference. But once you start, stay with that, so that if you have someone that has, let's say, a last name of David, but someone else may have a first name of David, someone may not know if that's really their first or last name if you're not consistent with how you put the order for your names. So be consistent. And then, as I've already mentioned, the women supply the full name with their maiden name only. Martha Danridge, most of us may not recognize that name, but we all know her. It was Martha Washington. But having her maiden name gives us the opportunity to learn about her parents, her siblings. So when we see the name Danridge in any documentation, we go, I wonder if that may be related to Martha, who we know as Martha Washington. So names are very important of how you put them, but you need to make the decision of how you want to do it in your tree so that it's consistent throughout your tree. Dates. Do not abbreviate dates. Dates are written in genealogy in this format: the day, the month, the year, such as July the 4th coming up would be 4 July 2021, or you could write it as I did, September of 04 July 2021, or 04 September 2021. You spell the month out. Why? Well, the way you abbreviate it may not be how someone else abbreviates it, and especially in the future generations. Also, as you're trying to abbreviate it, according to what you're using to write, if you're writing in pencil, that's eventually going to fade many times. And therefore, someone can't tell if it's an SCP or an SCPT, or especially with J's, with January, June, and July, what actually is that month. But if you spell it out, if it's January, it's long enough that you're going to know that that's probably not July or June. So your descendants would know that, okay, that event happened in January. You will not ever, please don't, put your dates in numerical order, or excuse me, in numerals, such as 4/9/2021. Seeing that, someone might ask, did that event happen on April the 9th? Or did that event happen on September the 4th? As a genealogist, I would assume it happened on September the 4th. But I still would have to put a question mark out beside the date because I'm not 100% sure, because I don't know whoever wrote that date down chose to put the day first or the month first. So that's why another reason that it's very important to write the month out. Places. Do not abbreviate places, the city, the county, or the state names. Now, state, many times you may go ahead and abbreviate it with a 2-letter digit, as we sometimes use now, but if possible, spell it out. So it would be Calhoun-Gordon, Georgia. Now, some alternatives would be Calhoun-Gordon, Georgia, and then USA. You will find that many software programs use either USA or United States of America, and it gives you the choice of which one you want to use, or not at all, in your information. Or you might write Calhoun-Gordon County, Georgia, and either with or without USA afterwards. Or you might have Gordon County, Georgia, USA. Now, I like to write the word county after the word if I know it for certain that it is the county in which the event happened. Why? State of Georgia, and there may be other states that have the same situation where there's a city and a county that has the same name, and they're in 2 different locations. We have Calhoun and Gordon County in Northwest Georgia, and we have the city of Gordon in Middle Georgia. And so if you see just Gordon, Georgia, is that the city of Gordon or is that Gordon County? So if I'm not completely certain of whether it's the county that they're speaking about or the city, I may just write Gordon, Georgia, with the parentheses of questioning, not sure if it's the city or the county. But if you do know, then write county afterwards. And so for the last example, I'm not sure what township, what city, what area of Gordon County this event happened. So I don't even put any indication of a city. I just put Gordon County, Georgia, USA. Where to begin? Well, you're going to begin with what you already know. You know your name, you know your birth date, you've got your marriage date, all of that information we had a couple of slides ago. But you now need to start gathering your birth certificate, your marriage license, a death certificate for your parents if that's the situation. Look for newspaper articles and obituaries, especially in family Bibles or in boxes where you've had boxes of pictures and other things handed down to you. You will find a lot of information. Look for military records. All of this information is going to, or all of these documents are going to provide you with worlds of information. And from that information, you can go another generation back. When you're at family reunions, ask family members. Many times during family reunions, it's so much going on. You really don't have time to speak with someone or ask specific questions, but keep a keen ear and eye out for any small gatherings, because those, especially your older family members, may be discussing what they used to do, how they used to do things, what happened with so-and-so, where their parents lived. And you will gain a lot of information from listening to what they're saying. And then later you may go and speak with just one or two, maybe even call or visit them and take some old pictures and say, I found this picture. Who is this? What was going on? Can you give me any further information? Look in the family Bible. The family Bible, a lot of times will, as I mentioned, will have obituaries. Some family Bibles will even have what I call genealogical information, such as names, birth dates, marriage dates, death dates. Again, having some more information. Now, watch closely, because you may find that the dates always don't match other documents you have, because that's what we call secondhand information. They're writing it down, possibly days, months, or even years after the event. Go through family pictures. You may find pictures of people you don't recognize. See if there's any names on the back. As most families, there probably will be very few names on the back of pictures. Find family members that you may think know the answers. Going to a family reunion, post it on a board with some kind of blank cards underneath. So if someone recognizes them, they can say who it is. Now, if they say that's Aunt Mary, let's ask who Aunt Mary really is. What was Mary's maiden name? What was Mary's married name would even be helpful. Who were her parents? She's aunt to whom? Get the relationship and know who she is in relationship to the family. How many times have we called great neighbors or great friends, oh, that's Aunt so-and-so or Uncle so-and-so, when they're not even related, or Grandpa so-and-so, and they're not even related. But that's good to know. You know that there were great friends of the family, and you just need to know who they were. Go through letters and cards from relatives. Now, many times the cards may only be, if it's a happy birthday card, there may be a note in it, but it may not have a date. And so therefore you're kind of left, when did this happen? But if the card and or the letter is still in the envelope, you've got 2 or 3 pieces of information already. You've got the date of that it was postmarked. So inside the letter may say it's Tuesday. Okay, what Tuesday? And so if you can get the date off of the postmark, you can narrow it down to a year, a month, and maybe even the date, and narrow it down of what Tuesday it might have been. You will also know where the person lived that sent the letter or card, as well as the person that received the letter or card. And you get a timeline of their places of residence, which sometimes can be very helpful, of what was going on during that time. And then maybe there is some information in the letter or the card that says, oh, I just wanted to let you know so-and-so had a baby girl. Great, now I've got that person's name. They had a daughter. Let me make sure I've got that information in my tree. So look closely at everything. And even if you don't have the opportunity to look at it in detail then, at least set it aside. Don't throw it away until you had the opportunity to review it, make notes, add that to the family members in which it is related. Visit libraries and archives. You may not find personal information about your family in a library, but you never know. Someone may have written a book about your family name that it may not bring it up to your generation, but it may have information from your ancestors 2 or 3 generations back and then going further back. So visit libraries and state archives and national archives for information on your family and finding documentation such as military records or census that you may find even more information about your family when you're reviewing those. So what did you learn? If you've gathered a birth certificate, maybe some school records, your marriage license, maybe you find the family Bible that has that birth date in there, then you want to compare names. Are all of the names the same? Are they spelled exactly the same? Did someone, instead of using the full name, use initials? Okay, this person was G.W. Hall. Okay, but over here it's got the full name of George Washington Hall. Fine. We know that this is probably the same because GW and George Washington. Or is that someone spelled it a little differently? And it could be the fact that, okay, I'm looking at a family Bible and this handwriting is not the best in the world. Of course, a lot of ours aren't, but you see that they're spelling it from other words that you're looking at by how they hear it. And so therefore, you probably know that, yes, that is George. It's just that their education level was much lower at that time and did not know how we spell George. And so therefore it's the same person, same name, same dates, but we just have to look and compare and know which one is more accurate. Birth dates. You want to use more than likely as the exact correct date off of the birth certificate, unless it was a delayed birth certificate, and then that can have ramifications within itself. Dates can be off a little bit by the month, the day, or even the year. You'll look at the birth certificate, it may have one date, but then if you look at the record, possibly in a family Bible, or even on a death certificate, they may be a little different. The issue is that someone's thinking, oh, I need to put the birth of Mary's child in the Bible. She was born last month, and maybe she was born really on the first of this new month, but somehow they didn't really connect the fact that maybe that month didn't have only 30 days, and she thought they were born on the 31st of the month instead of the first of the next month. So you have to look closely at the dates and get as much documentation to determine which is accurate. Same thing with marriages. The dates of the marriage, that can be off a month or so, according to when someone may have thought they were going to get married, and then they maybe decided, I'm not going to do the wedding, we're just going to elope. And so the date ends up being a little different. But more importantly, notice the spouse. Maybe you were looking for the marriage certificate for your great-grandmother, and when you find it, that spouse is not who you were expecting. That gives you indication that she was married previously or after the fact, either one. It could be either way. Notice the death certificates. The death certificates can tell you where they died, when they died, where the burial is. And also death certificates will provide you with the deceased father's name and the location of that father's birth, as well as the deceased mother's maiden name, if it's known, and her place of birth. Now, many times that information may not be correct because whoever's providing that information may be a second wife or may be a friend because there were no children. So again, you have to look at the information, see how accurate it may be, who provided that information, and if you've got conflicting information, then you start going through the process of which might be correct and go with that. Research log. A research log is very important. I wished I had understood more about research logs when I first started. A research log is to help you reach that final goal. This particular research log I started for my DAR application. That's my general goal. But my objective is that I've got to find the relationship from me to my Revolutionary War ancestor. And so with each step, I've put the date that I started, what the goal is, and what I need to find, and if I found it. Such as in March, I started that I need to have notification to show that my father, which I already have that documentation, that his relationship to his parents, that his parents that I have listed are actually his parents. So I'm going to need his birth certificate. And so therefore I went to the Alabama Vital Records, got a certified copy, received it, and then filed it in the file. Then the next is to show that my father's parents actually married. And so I need a copy of their marriage certificate. And I can go to several different places, familysearch.org, ancestry.com, Alabama Vital Records, to see if I can get a copy. And so therefore I got a copy of the marriage license found in family records, but I also found the index and image of the marriage license on familysearch.org, and I referenced the film number. So if anyone else needs to reference that particular certificate, they can, and state that it was in the marriage record, Alabama marriages for counties in the courthouses for Alabama. So you give that just general flow, and this helps you. It's like, okay, I'm still looking for this marriage certificate. Where have I looked? Okay, I've looked in Family Search, not there. I've looked in, Ancestries, not there. Vital Records for whatever state, could not find it. So where else can I go? But let's look. Wait a minute. I have the date there as March 2021. Family Search and Ancestry are always adding new records because they're out in the counties, in the states, throughout the United States, and into England and Ireland, Scotland, other locations, and digitizing those records and then putting them online. So you may want to take another look. Maybe you tried doing your grandfather's name or your great grandfather's name. Now try the wife's name with using her maiden name. So sometimes you do have to go back, and so you would date that on this one. I tried again. Maybe this time you're successful. If not, then you'll put still looking or something of that nature, so you know you haven't got a final result. Free resources. As you're doing research, and this was my situation when I first started in the late 80s, I really didn't want to spend the money. I really didn't have the time to do a lot of research, so I didn't want to put a lot of money into it. I didn't want to buy a membership into Ancestry.com. And I was very new, and I really didn't know all the possible resources that were available to me. As I mentioned earlier, the National Genealogical Society, ngsgenealogy.org, is a great resource. You do not have to become a member. You can go to their website. There's a scrolling down, it's like getting started, and it's got a lot of videos, general information that you can read and look at to get started on your tree and answer some questions. You may find some, oh, I wish I could get this book or this pamphlet, it would be helpful. You can purchase items from National Genealogical Society by not being a member. All you do is set up a free account using your email address and a password. Family Search has a tree, wiki, and records. Family Search is a website that was created and is hosted by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and it's dedicated in assisting all to discover their family story. Now, the Family Search tree is the world's largest shared tree. You can go onto Family Search, and all you need to is set up an account with your email address and a password. It's free. And you can start your tree. Now, I do not do a lot on the Family Search tree because as it states, it's the largest shared tree, which means if someone saw the name of your aunt and said, oh, they've got that birth date wrong, because maybe they have an aunt also with that same name, then they would go in and change it. And they're supposed to state why they're changing it, why they believe their information is correct. So you have people changing information when they're not verifying that that's their aunt. And so you can always go back and change it back to what you know. And so you really have this to me, miscommunication. But it's a great resource to start a tree, put in as very basic information as you want, or as detailed information as you want, to find records, to find family members that may be very distant, that has a piece of information that you had been looking for. The Family Search Wiki, you can find this Family Search Wiki by going to the website and looking under search, scrolling down, and it'll say Family Search Wiki. By doing that, then you can go to the United States, choose the state that you would like to find information for, and then go down and look and see what information is there, let's say for Georgia. May list a lot of societies that are there, list libraries that are available that would have information, basic information about Georgia, where you might find some books that would have information that you might be needing or wanting to research. And then there are records. Family Search is constantly digitizing, indexing records. They've got millions and millions of records that are microfilmed, and they're going through and digitizing those, making them accessible online to make life a lot easier for all of us that can't get to Utah to do research. So look at the Family Search tree under their records. You could go down and find census. You might find family Bibles. Always do some research there to see what you may find. Now, some of the records may be locked, which means that they cannot open it up to the public at this time. Some of the records may only be able to be seen at a Family Search library, which many times there are local libraries throughout the state. You can go to Family Search and look for locations, and it will tell you where there might be a Family Search library. And then you can contact them to see if they would be able to access that particular information. As I've already mentioned, general libraries, you've got your local library that is beginning to increase their genealogy room. Go in, look to see what information is there. If you're looking for something specific that they do not think they have, then let them know so that they can be on the lookout for finding some information that you are also looking for. And also check your other state libraries. You may have ancestors from another state. Check with those libraries, those archives. You may find a lot of information online that will be helpful in your research. State and national archives. The Georgia State Archives and the National Archives for Atlanta are in Morrow, Georgia. They're on the same piece of property. They share a parking lot together. And so you want to go to each one of those to visit and find your records, but you may want to go online to see what they have so that you know exactly what you're looking for and not waste time once you get there. Now, the Georgia Archives is open from Tuesday through Saturday from 8:30 to 5. And at this time, you can get in, but you need to call and make an appointment because they're still limiting the time for 2 hours at a time, and you must have an appointment to get in. They're beginning to open up a little more where small groups can have meetings. So I think this is going to get to the point of not having to make appointments, but I would still call for a few more months to make sure, if you're going tomorrow, to make sure that you're going to be able to get in. The National Archives next door is open Monday through Friday, 9 to 4. Now, on their website, they're still closed. They have not started opening up even for appointments. So do call and check before you go. Societies. Consider joining a state and/or local genealogical society. Because I have ancestors from Virginia, North Carolina, and Alabama, as well as Georgia, I'm a member of all 4 of those genealogical state societies. I'm also a member of Carroll County Society and Northeast Alabama Genealogical Society, because I have ancestors that were in those areas, and I'm hoping that I may be able to find records or information that I haven't been able to find elsewhere. Many times you have access to records, books, information on those websites, such as the Georgia Genealogical Society. We have a free webinar once every other month, I believe it is, and it's free to anyone. But after the webinar, as a member, you can always go back and review and look at that webinar and any other webinars that we've had. So that's a plus of joining many of the state societies, as well as many times if they're having a meeting, if you can go, or even if it's online, many times if there is a registration fee, registration fee is less for a member than for a non-member. So can look into that and see if it would be something you would be interested in. Find a grave. Findagrave.com is a great resource. You would never think about it, but if you're not sure where your ancestor was buried, you can start looking for them by putting in their name. If you know what state you think they're buried in, start with that. If you know the exact date that they died, just put the year. Many times it will come up with more than one name, and you're going to have to just look at it and see if that may be your ancestor. Sometimes you won't even get any names. And the reason could be one, how you entered the name. It's not entered that way on Find a Grave. Or two, wherever they may be buried, no one has gone to that particular cemetery and taken pictures of all of the graves and then posted it online. If that's something you're interested in, you can go to Find a Grave, become a member. You'll get a member number, and it doesn't cost anything. So if you like going to cemeteries, taking pictures, adding those to Find a Grave, providing basic information off of the tombstone, and you'll find some have even gone further to do research about a particular person. They will have their, especially if they're all kind of buried together, they'll have their spouse's name there with a picture of their tombstone. They'll have a list of their children if they know. Sometimes you'll find a lot of information, and other times you may not find any. But check out Find a Grave. Other resources. Now, these resources you do have to pay for. And I'm sure we've all heard Ancestry.com. They're always advertising online, talking about different things in different programs. It is an online tree. It is your tree. You start it, you control it. You have the capability to have it where it's public or private. If it's private, no one else can see the tree. If it's public, anyone else can see the tree, but they cannot change anything. They cannot add anything to that tree. If it's public, they will only be able to see the names and information of those that have passed. If they're still living, that information is not available. And it could be you'll find trees that it's like, I know that person, yes. Why do they still show that it's private when I know that sibling that they have private is passed? It's because many times people forget and don't go in there and put a death date. Or it could be that they don't want to put the death date yet. It's too recent. So you will not be able to see anyone else's living siblings or children or parents, but neither can they see yours. Now, there's plenty of records available. And with Ancestry.com, you can do a free trial if you just want to try it for about 2 weeks. And then if you choose, you've got 3 different levels. There's a basic, a world, and then an all access. So basic is for the United States and maybe Canada and Mexico. The world is going across the oceans to England, Ireland, Scotland, where all those European countries. And then all access gives you access to Ancestry.com, newspapers.com, and Fold3.com, because both newspapers and Fold3 are owned by Ancestry. Ancestry also syncs with Family Tree Maker, and I'll talk about that in a moment. MyHeritage.com is another online tree. You can set up a free tree, just putting a tree out there. But if you want to see the records, you will need to have a membership. So you will want to look at that. And there may be a free trial to look at the records, but I'm not 100% sure there, since I do know you can set up a tree without having a membership. Newspapers.com has 2 levels, basic and premium. Basic, you can find some information, but premium, it gives you a lot more options, a lot more opportunities to find records back into the 1800s and maybe into the late 1700s. Haven't gone that far. Newspapers.com and genealogybank.com are very similar. I have had more success with newspapers.com. It renews every 6 months. So if you've got all the information you want and you're not using it, then when it comes time to renew, don't renew it. And then you can always start up again. Now, genealogybank.com is on an annual basis. Like I said, I haven't had as much success, though I have found things there that I have not found in newspapers.com. So they do periodically, genealogybank.com has free access. Watch for advertising around Memorial Day, July the 4th, Labor Day even, Father's Day, Christmas. A lot of these Ancestry, MyHeritage, newspapers, genealogy, Fold 3 especially, will have access. Anybody can access their records for a limited time because they're hoping that you're joining and they're representing or recognizing that particular holiday. Fold3.com is strictly military. You can even set up your own military page for your ancestor that may have been in the Civil War, may have fought in Vietnam War, whatever. And then you'll also find records concerning that particular war, as well as maybe your ancestor. FindMyPast.com is strictly for English and Irish ancestry. So if you know your family members came from England or Ireland, and you know their time frame, you may want to look at FindMyPast.com. And I do know that they have a free trial, usually for about 2 weeks. Then you can also buy software that you can download to your computer. I've used Family Tree Maker for many, many, many years, and I'm very familiar with it. I like it. I like the way it flows. But Roots Magic and MyHeritage Family Tree Builder are also softwares that you can try. Many times you can try these programs for a couple of weeks. It will limit you of what you're able to do, but the biggest thing is you see how you create a tree on using their website, or excuse me, using their software, as well as determining how you find things. And if you're not comfortable with it, then try one of the others. If you do like the way it works, then you can buy not so much buy a membership, but buy the software, download it, and that way you can have that on your computer. Reason to have a software. Yes, you need a software on your computer because you're not guaranteed that Ancestry.com will be here forever and ever and ever. Or the fact that circumstances may decide that I really don't want to renew my membership in Ancestry, and now I've lost all that documentation. But if you've taken that information, as you also save it to Ancestry and download it to your computer, and then put it over into your software program, then you've got it. Now, Family Tree Maker, as I mentioned earlier, syncs with Ancestry.com. MyHeritage Family Tree Builder syncs with MyHeritage.com. Syncing is helpful, but also dangerous. It will allow you to, any information you find in Ancestry to automatically flow over to Family Tree Maker if that's your software you're using. But you have to be very careful, because if you're syncing that way, many times people are just building their tree. Oh yes, that's my great-great-great-great-great-grandfather. Let me put him on here. And then when you start looking, that great-great-grandfather was born after his son. How does that work? So many times people aren't watching the dates. They're just looking at the names and adding them. And so therefore you might get misinformation in your software tree. So I quit syncing mine. I'm using my Family Tree Maker on my computer as what I call my verified tree, that I know for a fact that that information is correct. I have documentation as much as I can at that point. So I do not let them sync any longer. But that's something that's up to you. And you can always unsync them, and you can always sync them back if that's a choice. Some great books to use: the Red Book, America's State, County, and Town Sources. This is an expansive guide to the most useful resources in each of the 50 states, whether it's an original material, printed, microfilmed, or online resources. The Genealogy room at Calhoun Library does have a copy of the Red Book. Georgia Research, a handbook for genealogists. Historians, archivists, lawyers, librarians, and other researchers by Robert Davis and Ted Brooke is a great resource if you're doing research in Georgia. It provides information and sources about Georgia, including maps, federal and state sources, church records, time period research, and county records. This is the one book that if you're doing research in Georgia, the Georgia Genealogical Society highly recommends one have. A copy of this is also in the Calhoun Library. The Source, a guidebook to American genealogy. This is a book that helps to take the complexity out of the process of finding and using records. Many times it's like, I need to find this record. Where might I go to find it? It may give you some simple ideas of where to look for it. And once you find it, what are you going to do with it? What information is this particular record supposed to tell you? So it's both a handbook and a guide to primary sources of genealogy. And primary sources are very important. Secondary sources or things such as the family Bible, where someone finally wrote the birth date in, but the primary source would be the birth certificate. Paths to Your Past, a guide to finding your ancestors by Pam Sayer. This is a small 75-page little book. It helps you to begin your search. It tells you how to collect information from different sources and how to record facts and tips on organizing your information. This little book is available at National Genealogical Society, and it's small paperback book, so it's easy to keep possibly in your purse or in your car. So if you're having to wait on someone while they're at the dentist office or waiting for them to get out of school, you can maybe pick it up, start reading a couple of pages, highlight it, mark it so that you know, oh, I need to go back and look at this as I'm trying to find more and more information. When you're getting the information from all the documents you're looking at, the one thing that is harped throughout genealogy workshops is citations. And I did not think about citations when I started in the late 80s, early 90s. I wished I had. Wished I'd known what I was doing more other than just trying to put a tree together. The book that most will refer to is Evidence Explained, Citing History Sources from Artifacts to Cyberspace by Elizabeth Mills. And a copy of this is in the genealogy room at the Calhoun Library. This book focuses on identifying the information researchers should record as they're reviewing a document for eventual identification of the source and all details in the future. So I used the 1870 census for some of the information on my family group sheet is where I put the information. And so you'll see the complete citation, the name of the record, which was the 1870 US Census. Then it was the city. This time they didn't have a city, so it was Beat 16, the county, Shelby, state, Alabama. The roll, the page number of which that particular page that I was looking for was stamped with 543A. It was in the population schedule, not the agriculture or the slave schedule. It was the population schedule. Dwelling 61 was the house number. Family 60 was they were the 60th family that the person that was doing the interviewing for the census spoke to. We were looking for James Martin Glass, and it's actually what we're seeing is an image, and this image is on ancestry.com. You then put the website. When did I access it? May 10th, 2021. And then it goes further, because anytime you do with Ancestry, it will have a place that says citation. You can click on that and it will give you the full citation, so you can copy and keep that information handy. But it's really citing the NARA, or NARA, whichever way you like to pronounce it, the microfilm publication of M593, 1,761 rolls in the state of Alabama for 1870. So I might have a little research to do to find which roll I would need if I was going to the state National Archives to find this information. And NARA is the National Archives and Record Administration location. Genealogy is very rewarding. It's very time consuming. You can find a lot of information, good and bad, about your family. secrets that have been hidden, secrets that have been forgotten, information in general that's been forgotten. And as you start on your research, as you start on building that tree, as you're looking at records, you're going to have to be aware of Alice in Wonderland's rabbit hole. As you embrace your research, you have to be aware of the rabbit hole. You may be finding interesting information down this rabbit hole, but you need to document where that information is, where you found it, and then go back to your research log, go back to the main reason you got on the computer or went to the library to find a particular document to answer your goal. Going down the rabbit hole is fun, sometimes a waste of time, but always interesting. Thank you for joining me today. There will be handouts available at the library. It's a pedigree chart, the family group sheet, and also a sheet called the Historic High Country Resource Sheet. It is information and resources available in Northwest Georgia that the Georgia Genealogical Society has put together. Feel free to contact the library. They will either email it to you or feel free to ask for a copy when you go by. Good luck. Have fun building your family tree.